Welcome to Brain Info Live, for everyone in the brain health community. Brain Info Live is about hope, health, support, education, and you. Whether you're living with Alzheimer's or a caregiver, family member, or loved one of someone who is, Brain Info Live is here for everybody.
Good morning, everyone. It is Barbara. Happy Wednesday. I am so excited to be back for the 16th episode of Brain Info Live. My name is Barbara Chandler, and I will be your host. We are in sunny Florida, where the weather is absolutely beautiful. So if you are joining me, and you are also in Florida, I hope you are having a great day. We have a fantastic show for you today. We are going to be discussing, of course, brain health and clinical trials. Again, this is the 16th episode. We have a very special guest, Dr. Holland, and you will be hearing from him shortly. But as usual, we just want to give you a warm welcome back. It is 2023. I hope that everyone has started off their New Year's with a bang. And of course, we always make our New Year's resolutions. And we hope at the top of that list of resolutions, it is brain health, because it's at the top of ours. So once again, welcome to the 16th episode. And if you did not know, we are live. That's right, we are live. And so we have up next, of course, like we always do, we're going to be bringing on Jay Lou, our fitness guru. And one of the things I always say is to go at your own pace. Go at your own pace. This next 15 minutes or 10 minutes of exercise is for you. It is not a competition. This is strictly for you. So go at your own pace. So with no further ado, out of Atlanta, we have Jay Lou, the fitness guru.
Hey, I'm Jay Lou, your fitness guru. I want to welcome you to Brain Info Live. Today, I need you to bring your energy, get your dumbbells, cans, bottles, anything you want to use for resistance, and go get it, because we're going to do standing total body abs. So get ready in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, I need them elbows up. We're going to do same arm, same leg, and just stay with me. And if you need to take a break, you can. Here we go. Let's go. Come on. 5. Let's rock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's cross it. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's alternate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's do both arms and alternate. 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, wider. And I want this leg to cross over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Switch. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. I want you to drive this arm and this leg. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Switch. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Bend your knees, elbow up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 more. 6, 7, 8. Come on. 10. I'm with you. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Come on. 8, 9, 10. All right. Straight arm, straight leg. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, opposite arm, opposite leg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Switch. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, I want you to crunch over and then short and quick. 1, 2, 3. Good. Now, arm over and go. Ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great job. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, bend your knees. Crunch and up. Crunch. Crunch, 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 crunch. Grab the abs. Grab the abs. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Now we're gonna go left to right. Same motion. Crunch, 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 crunch. Crunch, 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 crunch. Okay, feet wider, just right side. Reach and crunch that waist. Chest up. 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Other side. 5. 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wider, arms straight, chest up, and let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep it going. Keep it going. Keep it going. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Okay, bend your knees. We're gonna start here in the pocket, and you turn. Ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Come on. 7, 8, 9, 10. Other way. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on. 5, 6. Come on. 7, 8, 9, 10. We almost there. We almost there. Elbows up. Bend your knees and turn. You're almost like a robot. Don't move those legs. Come on. Hold your arms like you're hugging somebody. And rest. Now I'm going to bring them up at an angle. We almost finished. Let's go. Chest up. Come on. Keep it going. Keep it going. Good. Last one. Stay with me. Here we go. Set up in your knees. Overhead. Let's go. Boom. Rest. Great job. Great work. I'm J. Lou, and I want to say thank you, and see you later. Bye.
Whoa, that was J. Lou, the fitness guru. Talk about energetic. What a way to start the day. Once again, my name is Barbara Chandler. For those of you who are just joining us, this is the 16th episode of Brain Info Live. And this particular episode is dedicated to information on the basics of clinical trial participation by the Center for Information and Study on Clinical Research Participation. So I hope that 5-minute exercise, I hope you went at your own pace. Of course, J. Lou, we want to thank you as always. And one of my favorite games I saw in the background was that of the Pac-Man machine. That's one of my wellness therapeutic ways of staying well. So next upcoming, you know what time it is. It is our movie time. Movie time this session. We have two clips for you. I'm sorry. The one clip is the basics of clinical trial participation. The other one is what is clinical research. Let me review that. Let me rewind. We are going into our video clips. The first one, what we are going to see will be what is clinical trial research by the National Institute of Health. And then the other one that we're going to be watching is from Turning Point. And that one is the basics of clinical trial participation. I hope I got that right, okay? The second one is from Turning Point, and that is the basics of clinical trial participation. The first one, again, is what is clinical research by the National Institute of Health, and then the second one is the basics of clinical trial participation by Turning Point. Blame it on John Lou. He's all energetic, and it was contagious, okay? So we're gonna go to our movies now.
Clinical trials are the best way to ensure that safe and effective new medicines can be developed for patients who need them. Sometimes clinical trials must adapt and change in response to major crises and challenges, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, there are many important requirements of all clinical trials that continue, even during these difficult times. All clinical trials must follow a study design called a protocol and must gather evidence to answer questions about a therapy's safety and efficacy. Many clinical trial designs use study blinding. This is when participants and researchers don't know which treatment participants are receiving. Some trials are done this way because knowing what treatment the participants are receiving can affect the results of the trial. Blinding minimizes bias. All clinical trials are directed by study doctors, also known as principal investigators, and conducted by study staff to monitor participants' safety and help participants and their families. All clinical trials involve careful monitoring from regulatory and ethical authorities to help ensure the safety of study participants. All clinical trials have an informed consent process so that participants can learn about all aspects of the study before deciding if they will agree to take part. And in all clinical trials, study participants can choose to end their involvement at any time. All clinical trials should have a diverse group of study participants who reflect the population that will be using the new therapy. Most clinical trials involve a comparison therapy to evaluate the new therapy. The comparison therapy could be a standard treatment that has already been tested and approved. It could also be a placebo. A placebo looks like a treatment, but does not have any medicine in it. One way that researchers are working to adapt clinical trials is by making studies more accessible through virtual visits or by having a nurse or health professional visit the study participant's home. These types of clinical trials may be safer for some participants during a crisis such as a pandemic, and may be much more convenient for participants who live far away from a research center or have difficulty traveling.
All drugs must pass through 3 clinical phases. Phase 1 is simply getting the drug into a human being without any toxic side effects, oftentimes using different doses to understand how the drug is handled by the body. Does it last? Does it get cleared quickly? Does it get to the target of interest? Phase 2 is when the drug is administered to a small patient population, where it's evaluated if the drug is effective, and where scientists determine what dosage they want to test in patients in a much larger Phase 3 trial. Thousands of people will be tested in order to look at what clinical benefits and data targets are met across the entire patient population.
We collect data from any given patient at multiple time points, at multiple ways to ask questions about that patient's safety or how the patient is feeling.
We're participating in a study. We don't know if he's taking a placebo or a half or a full dose of the drug, but We're doing something. We meet with like 4 different people. They're all wonderful.
Oh, yeah, they are.
We
It's
spend
great.
3 to 4
Great.
hours here.
One of the things that I always have problems with is I'll be reading a book or something like that, and then all of a sudden it just kind of stops, or and then I have to try to get it. I know it's there, but I can't get it.
We hope that we can bend the curve just enough that people can die out ballroom dancing instead of in a nursing home. This robs wonderful people their deserved end of life. But especially we don't see the other victims, the family members who take care of them. This affects the whole family, all generations.
Wow, welcome back. I want to clarify a few things before we introduce our special guest, Dr. Peter Holland. I want to correct that the very first video that you saw, that was entitled The Basics of Clinical Trial Participation, correct? The first video was around the basics of clinical trial participation. And then the second video was what is clinical research, and that was by Turning Point. I hope I'm correct on that. But I just wanted to make sure that I made the clip was from the documentary Turning Point, the very second one. I hope I stand corrected. All righty. So with no further ado, today we have with us Dr. Peter Holland. Dr. Peter Holland and I, how are you?
Good. A pleasure to be here, Barbara.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Peter Holland is a professor of psychiatry in the Department of Clinical Neurosciences at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, Florida. Dr. Holland, welcome to the 16th episode of Brain Info Live.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Barbara. It's a pleasure to be here. And I was very impressed. Those 2 video clips really stole my thunder. They really explained things well and went over the basics of clinical trials.
Yes, I thought those were really good as well. And so we're going to dive into those a bit more. We do have some questions, and just so you know, there may be a few more questions that come in from our audience members, but we definitely, and they were 2 amazing videos. I always like when they posture it that it's digestible and understandable to the layperson, and I thought both of those videos did an excellent job of that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what interested you in dementia and the work that you do?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, I'm a psychiatrist, but I have special training in geriatric psychiatry, and most of my career has been involved with clinical trials looking at new medications. And dementia is such an extraordinary problem, and it's only getting worse. As medical science has advanced and we're helping people live longer with cancer and heart disease, that's sort of the good news. The bad news is people are living longer, and the incidence of dementia and Alzheimer's disease increases with age. So consequently, we're having a huge increase in the number of patients with Alzheimer's and related dementias, and we really don't have very good treatments for them. So that's what's got me so interested in trying to solve this puzzle.
Excellent. Well, we're glad to have more people that is doing the work. So thank you. We just heard some news, January the 6th, for an Alzheimer's drug. Can you talk about how a clinical trial contributed to that and other treatments for Alzheimer's?
Sure. Well, as those 2 video clips sort of portrayed, we would never get new medicines unless we had clinical trials and volunteers, participants in those trials. These trials are very arduous. They're arduous even for a simple medicine like a pain pill. But when you study something like dementia, because change occurs so gradually, in order to see if a medicine is working, the clinical trial likely goes on at least 18 months. And each site is contributing a number of patients. Trials go on all over the world. And this trial may have started 2 or 3 years ago before we get all the results. So when a drug makes it to market, what patients and the public doesn't see is all the hard work that for years went into trying to prove that it's safe and it's effective. So clinical trials play a very important role in bringing any new medicine to market. And it's that much harder when we're dealing with a disease that progresses so gradually and fluctuates, such as dementia and Alzheimer's.
Correct. And I'm glad you stressed that point about the fact that these clinical trials are in progress for about 18 months prior to it making it to the market. Because a lot of times when it's introduced to the community or introduced to the market, we're wondering how long has this been on the market? How long has it been tested? And that tends to raise a hair as to whether or not we trust the product or not. So having that information of how long it's been in the trial process is very important. I know one of the questions I have when a clinical trial is happening, where are the people being recruited or how are they being recruited? What does that process, that recruitment process look like?
Yeah, well, we try outreach in a number of ways. In the older days, we put ads in newspapers, but not many people read newspapers. But we try newspapers. There are shows like this, for example, speeches. There's direct mailing. The other day, I got a text from my pharmacy wondering if I were eligible as a participant in a trial. So having participants is critical, and just where social media is being used more, depending on the population. Older folks tend to not be as into social media, so that's a challenge. Word of mouth, we try everything that we can.
Okay, excellent, excellent. In the simplest terms, what is the process of a clinical trial?
Again, those videos portrayed it pretty well. Well, there are different phases. There's phase 1, phase 2, and usually the trials we're looking at are phase 3, which are the large trials where we need several thousand participants from around the world. All trials are overseen by an institution called an IRB, an institutional review board, to make sure that the trial is fair and safe for the participants. And we try and recruit. We have a list of what are called inclusion and exclusion criteria. A patient, a participant needs to be in a certain age range. They need to have certain kinds of symptoms. They cannot have other kinds of symptoms. For instance, if a participant has had cancer or serious heart disease or other diseases that might make the trial unsafe, they would be excluded. So there's a whole process to see if someone who's interested really qualifies. If they seem like they qualify, then we go over a very extensive informed consent. We want to make sure that the potential participant really understands what are the potential benefits of being in a study, what are the potential risks, and we want to make sure that they're going into it, they and their families, where appropriate, really have their eyes open as to what is involved, how much time it'll take, how much, will they have to travel? Do they have to get certain tests or blood tests? We want to make sure that every participant is truly has real informed consent. We don't just say, well, sign this. It'll be really go over each line, make sure every question is answered. And only then will they really enroll someone in a study.
Okay, all righty. We have a question that came in. How do organizations choose and come up with the treatment to do a trial for? How do organizations choose and come up with the treatment to do a trial for?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the questioner is wanting there. The pharmaceutical companies, medical science has a whole list of problems we don't have good treatments for. Um, there's,
Right.
Alzheimer's and dementia is one, different cancers, migraine headaches. There's a whole slew of diseases that we don't have ideal treatments. And then pharmaceutical companies, sometimes along with the government help and sponsorship, say, this is an unmet need. Let's see if we can design, is there a molecule? Is there a potential drug that looks like, from the basic science that we know, has the potential to be helpful? And from there, the pharmaceutical company gets together. Do we have the resources? How difficult will it be to do the trial? How much profit is there potentially in the end if the drug is successful? And are we willing to invest sometimes millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to proceed down this road from you begin with a molecule that has potential to years later a drug that may get FDA approval and ends up helping thousands of people, millions of people potentially.
Right. Right. So it's not so much of the organization as it is, let's see how we can provide better treatment. Let's see how we can come up with something better to help in particular areas
Right,
of health.
exactly. It's that old saying that that necessity is the mother of invention. So if there are medical
That's right.
needs, we have unmet needs, diseases that aren't being well managed or well treated, well, there's a need for improvement, and that's where the motivation starts.
Okay. Okay. My other question is, so when I received the information that we would be talking about clinical trials, one of my, I'm sure you've heard of the Tuskegee Airmen, the Henrietta Lacks story. So a lot of times these things that have happened from a historical perspective in the African American community, we withdraw ourselves from the trials. What I have learned in doing a lot of this programming, being a part of it, as I'm learning so much, is there is not a lot of information about African Americans because we're not participating in these trials. Is that truth? Is that a myth? And how are we working to bring in minorities, African Americans, the brown community, our Mexican, Hispanic community? How are we working to make sure that everyone is involved in the trial so we can have accurate data based on ethnicity and cultural involvement
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, and gender is important also. For years and years, almost all studies excluded females because it was particularly for certain. If we were looking at a younger population, it was thought, well, during the menstrual cycle, they could throw off a lot of tests and parameters. So let's just exclude females. And now we know what a big mistake that was, because drugs don't affect men and women the same way, and we don't know if different ethnic groups will be affected differently. So you're exactly right. There's a big push to make sure that there's great diversity in recruitment. One of the videos, one of the kind of the animated videos showed that, and we're looking, how do we address that through outreach, through through education, and again, and the IRB oversees. And we, in years past, we never had the safety oversights that we have now to make sure that people are treated fairly, that no one is put at undue risk, that no group is singled out for risk over and above any other group. So there's lots of changes that have taken place in the last 30, 40, 50 years to make sure that that trials are done in an open, transparent, fair way that brings as much benefit to the participants with as little risk as possible. And all of that would be clearly spelled out in the informed consent process. So we're trying. It's not easy, but you're right. Because of the historical injustices, we have to work extra hard.
Excellent. The other question, just to kind of piggyback on that, are there any non-invasive? I know that there's the trials for the medicine. Are there any non-invasive trials? Do those exist? Like where, and I don't want to sound uneducated, but I'll go for it anyway. Do those non-invasive trials where it's trying to see how the brain is working, do those exist?
Yes, they do exist. They're not all medication trials. In fact, I'm involved in a trial now. Florida Atlantic University is part of a consortium of institutions throughout Florida, mainly state university medical schools, but there are some private institutions. And we're looking at a trial, the microbiome in the aging gut and brain. There's increasing evidence that that the bacteria and viruses that live in our bodies, we don't like to think about it all the time, but there are millions of bacteria that live within our gut, and they have an effect on our brain. And we're doing a study now, again throughout Florida, to see comparing people with dementia versus people without dementia, to see if their biome, if the bacteria aren't the same. And that can maybe help us find patients who are at risk for dementia and target treatments to those who are at risk. And that just involves a saliva sample and a stool sample once a year for 5 years. And so there's no invasive medication administered. It's a very minimal discomfort, but the results would be extremely important.
Okay, that's really good. And I think of prior programming, and one of the most consistent things that I've heard was nutrition, the Mediterranean diet. That was always stated that that's one of those preventive. Exercise, a less stressful type of environment, less stressful living, and having those things implemented into our day-to-day lives as a form of prevention. So it's good to know that there are other ways as well that everyone can participate, and kind of that we can collect as much information to help our future generations.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I got another question. Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was waiting for your comeback.
Okay. Let's see here. What are the things that you think most people don't know about clinical trials that are worth mentioning?
Well, as I'll kind of reiterate, we went over some of this, first, that all clinical trials, as mentioned in those videos, are voluntary. So we never get anyone in a trial without their complete knowledge and consent. And if you volunteer and you sign, yes, I'll be involved, you have the right to change your mind, that you're not signing, even though the trial may last 2 years. After a week, you may say, no, I changed my mind. After 6 months, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe you have a good reason. Maybe you don't like getting in the injections or the blood tests, or it's inconvenient, or maybe no reason at all. You just woke up one morning and decided it's not for me. That's fine. There's no pressure. There's no prejudice against you. Your health care won't be adversely affected. Every participant is 100% voluntary and remains voluntary. And that's important. People sometimes are reluctant to get involved in the first place because they realize it's a big commitment and they're unsure. And we say, well, this week, are you willing to be involved? Next week, you can continue or not.
Excellent. And one of the questions, even though you said that it was voluntarily, one of the things you also mentioned that it takes a long time. It can take 18 months to 2 years, just depending on the trial and what results, we're hoping to see. Is there,
Yes.
because it is a commitment of time, is there in any instances, is there compensation?
Yeah, most of that's a great question. Most of the time, there's what's reasonable compensation. For instance, when I've run trials, we've been able to compensate patients and their families maybe $50 a visit to help with transportation, parking. We don't want to coerce anybody into a trial. So if we said, "Oh, we'll give you $1,000 a visit," well, then someone may just get involved. They don't really want to. They're really scared. But they're doing it for the money, and that's not
Right,
the right motivation. You really
right,
need to have an altruistic motivation. You want to help advance science, help advance medicine, help bring new medicines to market. Um, if your goal is to make money on this, you're not the right candidate. And if your goal is to definitely get better, you're not the right candidate either, because the trials are done because we don't know if the medicine will work or not. So there's no
correct.
guarantee of improvement or clear benefit from the. You're helping society.
Correct, correct, correct. And I'm so curious. So in this fast-paced moving world where multitasking is praised, we're on social media, we're on the computer, we're driving, we have a lot of stressors around us. What age group are we looking at? Age groups, or and I want to say this correctly, the age groups, where can someone start testing? We're in that space and time now where becoming the CEO at 30, younger and younger, are we starting to test younger and younger as well?
Well, we are, and that's a challenge. The early tests that were done 10, 20 years ago for Alzheimer's, many of them failed, almost all of them failed. And the reason we think now is because we were testing people who were too far along in the disease process. Too much of the brain had already become involved with amyloid, or brain cells had died. And so the medicines that we tested, maybe the medicine was good, but the disease was too advanced. So now we're
Correct.
learning to have the medicines really have a chance of working. We need to find people much earlier in the process when they're just beginning, which means a much younger population. And that's a
Correct.
problem because there is some, cognitive issues that occur normally with aging. And it's sometimes very
Hmm.
hard to tease out, is somebody just having normal aging memory problems the very, very beginning, like where did I leave my car in the parking lot? That's sort of normal. But
Yeah.
but there's a point where so we're beginning to develop some blood tests and brain scans and other advanced techniques that will allow us to identify people much earlier, maybe in their 40s, in their 50s. And that's where we
Yeah.
believe these new medicines have a much greater opportunity to be preventive and really helpful.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yeah, you mentioned that can't find your car. I tell you, at one point, someone did move my car though, so I totally get that. Let's see, is there is if there was one thing that people should remember about clinical trials, what would that be?
I guess the one thing, again, would be that I'll reiterate that it's without volunteers to participate, we would never get any new treatments, whether that be for Alzheimer's or cancer or anything else. So not only may you end up helping yourself, you may or may not, but you definitely be helping science and society and those that come after you. It's a sacrifice, of time, money, and energy. Well, not money, but time and energy. But again, you're really doing something good for society when you volunteer to be involved in a trial.
Excellent, excellent. Dr. Holland, I certainly appreciate this conversation. Thank you for the work that you're doing and the commitment. Um, this has been rewarding for me. I know how to engage these types of conversations when I'm speaking to family, friends, or just people in the community. It has proven helpful, and we just want to thank you and commend you again for the work that you are doing. And I know that people who are viewing, they're going to be able to follow up with more of what you're doing, resources that we will post at the end of the show, that they're going to be in the mailing list. So thank you so much, and we look forward to having you again.
Okay, I enjoyed it. Thanks very much, Barbara.
Thank you. All the best. Wow. That was a really good conversation. Once again, if you were just joining, this is Brain Info Live. You are listening to Brain Info Live. And that was Dr. Peter Holland. He is at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, Florida. And he is a psychiatrist, and he works with a lot of these clinical trials. And one of the things, he was phenomenal. Yes. One of the things that we learned is that clinical trials are very important for creating medicines that can help us when you're speaking dementia, Alzheimer's. A lot of these trials are in progress for 18 months to 2 years prior to them coming to the market. And they're always looking for people. Dr. Holland mentioned that at one point it was only men. They were testing men, and so gender. We need more women being tested. And one of the other things he mentioned is that the historical aspects of when African Americans or other minority groups are not being tested, and we need to diversify more. We know when we speak historically about trials, we think of the Tuskegee Airmen, we think of the Henrietta Lacks story, and that discourages us. But once again, if we are looking for solutions, medical solutions to a lot of these, medical solutions to a lot of the diseases that we have, or diseases that we're living with, it has to be motivated by just wanting to do good. So that was an excellent conversation. I received a lot from it, and I hope everyone else has as well. We are going to go to our quick poll. And in the quick poll here, it states, let's see, what is our poll for today? Always remember, there it is. Thank you, Alexa. Always remember that these polls are not to so much test us, but just give us the reminder of what is and what is not. You must have Alzheimer's or symptoms of Alzheimer's to participate in a clinical trial. The question says you must have Alzheimer's or symptoms of Alzheimer's to participate in a clinical trial. True or false? True or false? Okay, there is no right or wrong. There's always just room to learn. And the answer is false. Okay, the answer is false. Okay, you do not have to have this. All right, there are ways that they can test through blood sampling. Okay, all righty. So once again, we want to thank you so very much. Clinical trials need healthy participants. Clinical trials need healthy participants. Okay. He talked about if a person has symptoms of Alzheimer's or dementia, and if it's too far down the line, a lot of times those studies are somewhat skewed. So we do need healthy participants. Okay. And we need participants from all backgrounds. All righty. So once again, we're going to show you some resources, resources that if you need to further information or if you want to follow up, those resources are going to come up in a few. You can also sign up to bit.ly BIL Brain Info Live sign up. There it is on the screen. bit.ly/BILSIGNUP. Okay, that's Brain Info Live sign up. This has been a fantastic show. We want to thank Jay Lou, our fitness guru. He came back with so much energy for 2023. We also want to thank Dr. Peter Holland for this incredible information that he shared with us. And I felt the same way he did about the videos. I thought the videos were excellent. If those videos can be replayed, I think they were very understandable for someone like myself who is not a professional in this particular field. And so I certainly hope that everyone received a lot. You received a lot out of this particular episode. And I look forward to seeing you all again or just being here. Thank you so much from Brain Info Live.